Pedro from A&P-Reacts. I'm here today with Kelly of Civil War to talk about Invaders, out June 17th on Napalm Records. How are you doing today?
Doing great, man.
So this is your first album with the band. How did they approach you? How did the whole thing come together for you?
Their singer left kind of out of the blue, and right before a tour. So we got in touch. Daniel Mir and myself, the keyboarder, got in touch and talked about working together. And then I kind of stepped in to do that tour, so it wouldn't have to be canceled. And we kind of took it from there. We did a whole bunch of festivals and live stuff and some touring. And during that time, we started kind of working on the songs for the album.
So you were involved in the process of creating this record from the get-go?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, how different was it for you working with a band like Civil War, where you have this sort of thematic knowledge that has to come with it when you're writing these songs? How much did that change for you?
Well, yeah, my stuff that I've done in the past is more emotionally driven, personal, inner universe stuff, spiritual stuff, basically personal stuff. So it was kind of an interesting kind of process for me to get into this historical stuff. But I found the way when I wrote these lyrics to find a way to try to make it a little bit more personal, at least to put people into the story of what happened in those times, and so that was kind of my angle of finding a way, kind of a halfway point for me.
Did this allow you also to discover some historical facts that perhaps you didn't know?
Well, yeah, of course, because I'm not very much into history, but I think the song Andersonville, about Andersonville prison, that Confederate prison of war, and I got into reading letters and archived letters that the soldiers wrote home to their wives, and that was very touching. And I had no idea about that place or what was going on during those times. So it was very touching, and that was very personal for me. So I found a way in, through that, researching things, which was interesting.
It's funny that you mentioned that song, because I felt like it's one of my favorite songs on the album. It really feels, it sounds different from the rest of the record. It has a personal, emotional touch to it, and it comes across in your vocal performance, and it comes across in the sound. Is that a song that it's fun for you now to look back and maybe even perform live?
I really hope we get a chance to do that one. But for me, that song is quite close to me, because I really got into researching all these things, and then the idea of the deadline that's inside the prison, where if you touch that little fence inside the prison, you'll be shot immediately. So I came up with I kind of entangled two kind of experiences inside of that prison, and I kind of put those together. So I made it a love letter home to the wife, and everything's going fine. He's trying to be strong, and in the end, he just can't take the inhumanity of the place, and he decides to go to the deadline. So it's very dramatic and very touching for me, that song.
Yeah, it's an incredible track all around. So you got to tour with the guys, you got to play some festivals with the guys before even recording the show. Was the connection between you and the rest of the band almost immediately?
Yeah, because they're really they have a lot of experience. They're very easygoing. They're just really cool under pressure, and they really know what they're doing. So it was really easier to kind of get to know them, because there wasn't all this baggage or ego or any of that stuff. I got to learn kind of their basic personalities pretty quickly. Our drummer, he's a giant machine of a person, but he's such a sweetheart, and so all of the guys have their own basic personalities. Petrus, the guitarist who wrote a lot of the music, he basically, we call him Petrus, we call him Schrodinger's Petrus, because if you don't see him, we don't know if he exists. because he's a hermit-like person who just shows up with ideas out of the sudden. And but yeah, I liked the fact that I got to play with him live and to see how they work and get the kind of get in a groove with them and understand what we kind of wanted to do together. So that was a great chain of events, I think. Yeah.
When you came in, did they approach you in terms of some things that they wanted from you in the band, or did they give you completely free reign to just be who you are?
That was it. They just let me be myself. And honestly, I wouldn't really want to be in a situation where I have to emulate somebody or impersonate another vocalist or try to, to be accepted in that way. So yeah, it was great. We just got together and we put all of our ideas in the hat, and we saw which ones stuck. And yeah, there was no agenda or anything. It was just like, let's make some songs, let's make some music, and let's see how it goes.
When it comes to this album, Invaders, in the creative process, do you guys ever look at what the final product needs to be as far as the full record is concerned? Or are you just concentrating on the individual songs, and then once you have that, then you try to figure out exactly how the whole album is going to look like?
Yeah, I think that if the album has a thread, it's about people defending their loved ones and way of life against oppressors. So that would be a thematic, lyrical kind of little thread that goes through the album. But mostly we just wanted to write songs, and I thought it was kind of important to break free a little bit from it's always about war, it's always about the Civil War, it's always about this. Because I think as war goes, it's a great metaphor for life because it makes sense. But I didn't want to be totally, into that. I think that it was cool to have little islands in the album of something just completely different that offered us a little bit of a space. So yeah, the album is really, it's songs. It's not a concept album or any of those things. It's really just songs.
When it comes down to power metal, the genre, all the bands out there, what do you feel like Civil War has that perhaps some others don't, or perhaps what sets Civil War apart?
I don't know. Well, with me, everything I get involved in sounds a little darker, and I think I think on this album we kind of let Daniel Mir kind of take a forward position, giving all that ambiance and this atmosphere and a lot of electronic stuff and all of that stuff. I think that. Yeah, I think that's really it. We just go for it and we see what comes, and it's not necessarily. I mean, we may do a concept album later, or we may do something along those lines. But for this album, we just wanted to have songs and see how it went together.
I think it went well. Now, when you look at this record, when you look at what you achieved on this album, if you were talking to a friend that hasn't heard the album, or to a loved one who hasn't heard the album, how would you define what they're going to get the moment that they press play?
Well, I mean, giving the lead-in tracks, you're going to get hit kind of in the face with a lot of energy, but then we're going to kind of trick you into different vibes. I hope that we have a bunch of different vibes so you can have a arranged kind of experience where you don't just, it's a little more unexpected. And I think that's the freshness of it. I would expect them to just to maybe get into the lyrics and take that ride along and then discover how it kind of glues together in that sense, but just to kind of pick what for the day, what are you into? We've got a lot of things maybe to choose from, So I would say it's kind of a little universe of stuff. And it's just an experience. You just have to open up your ears and check it out. I'm not much of a salesman in that sense for music. I just want people to listen to it. If they like it, they do. And if they don't, they don't. You know, it's no skin off my teeth. I can't control you. You can't appeal to everyone. So I'm not going to sell it, you know.
I love the fact that you just like, you know what, I'm just here to sing, and if people like it, people like it. It is what it is.
Absolutely, because I realized that from the beginning when I was the first album I released was or that I was on that was released internationally was Beyond Twilight, where I replaced Jorn Land, you know, and that's a big guy to replace, and you have to, and it was received very well, and that was cool. But I realized that, you know, you just have to be yourself and just do your thing. If you can't be yourself, you can't be anybody else. So then you can be really lost. Trying to be somebody else is not my thing. And so I just do what I do, and I hope people like it. And, you know, and that's a happy accident if people like it, I think.
When it comes to your vocal performance, do you do anything to prepare yourself when it comes to an album? Do you look at what the song styles are going to be, prepare for that? How is your process vocally?
The most important thing for me is that I believe in what I'm saying. So I spent a lot of time on the lyrics and to try to get those stories right, to where I can immerse myself into a sort of an acting role. I like that cinematic experience and that the idea of being an actor. And if I can believe in what I'm saying, it draws me in, and it calls everything out of me. You know, from my experience of building my voice is one thing, technically or whatever, but I have to believe in what I'm doing and what I'm saying. And so that's what really gets me into that world for each track. And, you know, so I take the actor route.
Is as important to you to be an actor as it is to be a great storyteller? Because at the end of the day, that's kind of what you're doing, right?
I think it's kind of the same. Those two things are quite alike. I mean, it takes one thing to maybe write that story, because that's a very difficult thing to do. But then just to be a performer on the other side, that's another thing. You know, there are some great singers that they don't write melodies, they don't write their own lyrics, but they deliver those lyrics and those melodies in an incredible way because they pop into that performer, that actor role. Yeah, so I think those two kind of intertwined, especially if you write your own words. Like Ronnie James Dio is my ultimate hero, and he wrote all of his words because he wanted it. He wanted to act it out, and he wanted it to be quite specific to where he could deliver all those things with conviction because it came from him.
When you're putting these lyrics together, outside of the historical facts that have to go into it, do you are they a living organism? Like, are you working on them until you find the right sequence to match the songs that have been created, or the two coexist parallel to one another?
Well, generally what I do is I find like a melody or whatever. I'll hear the riff over and over again, and then and I'll find a melody that kind of pops out in my mind, and then I'll stick lyrics onto that. But yeah, I spend a lot of the pandemic time just kind of tearing my hair out over the lyrics to try to make sure that, you know, write this, rewrite this doesn't make sense, let's go for a rewrite here, let's try to be more specific, let's do this, or whatever. And yeah, it's very important, you know, to just really get that down. And yeah, but that's the way I work. First the melody comes, maybe one of the guys has a bit of a melody, or I come with a melody or whatever, and I stick those lyrics onto that. And then we try to make it make sense and make it into a story, something that it could draw people in, or hopefully, you know.
You talked about pulling your hair. Is there a song on this album that perhaps didn't make you pull your hair, but gave you some gray hairs?
Well, the Slaughterhouse Five, it's such an unusual story. I mean, it's mostly about post-traumatic stress disorder from seeing terrible things in war. But then there's a crazy bit about being abducted by aliens, and it's just wild. we both, I remember when I was down in Sweden, we read the book and then we watched the movie. And then I just turned to the guys and was like, how in the hell are we going to make a song about this? How is this ever going to make sense? And so over time, we just kind of put it on the back burner and kind of like, what the hell are we going to do? But then after a while, I kind of tried to just glue in the disparate parts of the story and try to make it make sense to where you get the nuggets of kind of everything that's in that story. And I'm kind of happy about the way it turned out because it's very atmospheric, it's very strange, and I love that track. But that one was, yeah, there was some doubt on whether that was going to make it.
Was there any songs that you guys started working on, but you know, for one reason or another, didn't make the cut for as far as this album is concerned?
I don't know. I mean, there may have been a couple of riffs or something that we dropped, or but all that I can remember now is just like we had some pretty good ideas out there, and then we just had to turn those ideas into songs. So I don't remember dropping anything. We almost dropped Battle of Life because we didn't know it's so sunshiny and positive, and we just didn't know how, you know, it could be a disaster, you know, like in the way of it being so positive and power metal-y and things like that. So we had a little doubt on that. But I just I kind of came up with some lyrics that I said, okay, well, let's just put something very positive out there, even though most of the album is very dark, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice contrast. One last question for you, and that is, where can fans find Civil War this summer?
Well, unfortunately, most of our fests have been canceled and rescheduled. The one thing that we have hanging on is Masters of Rock in the Czech Republic, but that's going to be a great one. That's with Judas Priest and all these great bands. So that's July 7th. We're going to be playing the Masters of Rock. So that'll be really cool. It'll be a shock to play live again because we haven't played live together in about 2 years or something, going on more. So yeah.
Any plans for maybe a little European tour or something along those lines towards the end of the year?
I suspect that there'll be some stuff opening up, you know, as the world kind of opens up a little bit more, and we might see something a little bit later this year. We're hoping that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, because fans will be excited to listen to some of these new tracks live and see you live as well playing these songs. Yeah,
it'll be nice to have my own kind of songs with a band. It'll be good. Yeah.
You have your own material now. You know, you're not just doing the old material. You have some new material. Well, Kelly, thank you very much for your time today, man. I really appreciate it. I was really excited when I saw your name added to this band, and vocally, you absolutely delivered on this album. One of the many bright spots that this record has is definitely your voice. So thank you for taking the time today.
Thank you. Salute. Yeah.